Hello and welcome. This will be the dev stream roundup for January 22nd and 29th, 2021. The first one on the 22nd was with Phil and Lalta. It was an hour and 7 minutes. They lost connection briefly in the middle, so it's two separate VODs. Both will be linked in the description. We start off with a question about DD2 updates. Phil states there's nothing to announce for DD2, and for DDA, currently working on the Xbox launch and on other consoles after that. He did not specify whether PS4 or the Switch would be after Xbox. Lalta goes on to specify that they are actively working on optimization and making sure everything is connected properly. Item stacking is gone, finally, and if you had a full inventory with items stacked after you updated the game, the stacked items are gone. Don't email support about those items. They are gone forever. They are looking into hero deck and selection stuff. The first pass will be controls and usability, after which hopefully we'll be able to manually sort our hero list. Lalta states outright, we're not going to talk about anything new, especially relating to our major content update for quite a while, because we're going through and doing some work on those things. There are still design passes being done. Their focus is getting console versions out and having content lined up for after, fulfilling the promises from Kickstarter, and accomplishing their initial project goals. Interwoven or afterwards, they'll have major content updates coming in for things like new maps and gear. Lalta describes the thinking behind why little things aren't being dropped as soon as they're ready. The idea is for new things to come in context, so new items would come along with a new system rather than just the items. Maybe the new items could be released tomorrow, but the system that they would be meant to complement isn't ready. The new accessories dropped with Transmog is a really good example of this. I'm sure they could have dropped those accessories much sooner, but Transmog probably wasn't ready until everything actually dropped. Lalta states that they are not committing to a timeline because they are anticipating not being able to stick to it. Phil says any timeline given would be inaccurate. They are in the process of improving gamepad support and are looking to do some pretty major overhauls in some areas. They mentioned that the controller setup as it is currently isn't really optimized for a DPS character like the Barb or the Gunwitch, which kind of confirms that we're getting those heroes. The idea though is that more work is needed for preventing the controller from being a hindrance for playing characters of that nature. Bill states that the triple threat will likely not return to the game, and it's kind of a collector's item now. In terms of overall updates, they want everything they add, subsequent updates and features, to serve as foundational pieces for future updates to expand upon them. Rift, for example, will get more hectic and chaotic as we go. They're still working on the scale of that. Lenisar asked about synthesized gear and how gear will work with new maps. Currently, synthesized gear is sparsed out evenly among all maps, so more maps would throw things off. Lalta explains that the idea is to introduce new things but keep older content relevant, or at least opt-in relevant. They do have plans for bringing new gear and maps in. Their goal is not to recreate the environment we had in 1.1, where everyone was farming the same 2 or 3 maps over and over. There are currently no active plans for updating DD2 at the moment, but that's not to say it won't be updated in the future. They're looking into everything across the franchise to see what opportunities are there. They are looking to take a pass at item power very soon with both how it's shown and communicated. They want to make item power split on by default to differentiate hero power and defense power and offer a better explanation of how to change that setting and what those numbers actually mean. They're also looking to take passes on the Squire and Apprentice towers. A conversation occurred about solo versus party play. Phil states that it always seems to flop as soon as one gets harder than the other in terms of perspective on which one should be harder than the other, and he states that we've gone back and forth a few times on the various updates, indicating that at one point solo was easier and another point solo was harder and then back to easier and so on. And then he says that players will always take the more efficient route even if it sacrifices fun, and people feel like they have to make multiple accounts if there's an incentive to play multiplayer. I can't personally speak for differences between early access and 1.0. I missed early access, but 1.1 and 1.2 has had solo play be substantially easier than co-op. I question this take. It's been a while since solo was far easier than co-op. It was confirmed that more people does not equal better loot. It only increases the mob count, which gives you more chances at loot, but technically it's the same RNG. If you're marked for hacking, you can still play online. You can just only get matched up with other hackers, and apparently the only way to have the mark removed is to somehow prove that you weren't hacking. The Tornado Valley aesthetic will be utilized more in the future, and they're working on an art book that will include the initial MS Paint version of each piece to show progression as well as the finalized version. They're also working on the digital soundtrack and strategy guide. Phil states that they don't have any announced details on Heroes, though they've said that the Summoner won't be coming for a long while, as there are a lot of balance considerations with that hero specifically, and they want to take the opportunity to look into new heroes that have never been seen before. Alright, the next dev stream was on January 29th, 2021. It was with Phil, Lalta, and Brittany, the new community manager. This one went for an hour and 8 minutes. At the top of the stream, Brittany was introduced as the new community manager. She mentions that she has a doctorate and that she teaches communications and some other things at the college level. Lalta mentions that something in their backlog that they want to get out is a kill recap on if you lose, what killed your core, or possibly what damaged your core throughout the wave. If your core doesn't heal like in hardcore, it's something that we might see in the future. There are no updates currently for shipping Kickstarter rewards outside of the US, largely due to COVID. Design is looking at the gaps between enemy spawns and at when the major enemies spawn during the waves. Currently, waves are heavily front-loaded with major enemies, with the last half or more of the waves being fodder enemies. It sounds like they are looking to spread the major enemies out more evenly into the waves. When asked about plans for implementing cosmetics that can be purchased via microtransactions, Phil and Lalta make it clear for a variety of reasons that DDA will not feature microtransactions, but rather include content in DLC or be unlockable via in-game or social media events. As for the Xbox release, they're still going through the certification process with Microsoft, with lots of good back and forth. Apparently, Chromatic Games found a bug on their own that Microsoft did not, and they're waiting to hear back about that as well. The overall goal is the same still with Xbox release, that being during Q1, but there's no specific date yet. It was stated that they probably won't do a lot of costumes outside of Rifted costumes, but they'll be adding in more customization options for the accessory slots via the transmog system. They want transmog to kind of replace costumes and be the primary means of character customization. It sounds like there will be unlockable accessories in the future. In the most recent hotfix, 15DU was added to the Promenade, and build timers were tied to hardcore, so you will not have a build timer in campaign unless hardcore is enabled. Lalta mentions that the team is looking to provide a mixture of new content and returning content. They want to separate DDA from DD1, the overall goal being to provide as much of a new experience as possible while feeling familiar and true to DD1 gameplay. For holidays throughout the year, Lalta states that they'll likely add events to do around the holidays, but they want to stay away from one-time paid DLC that is holiday themed. On the topic of pure strategy and mixed mode in Massacre, it's kind of in the works. It's on the docket for what they want to add in, but it's a whole slew of custom spawn schedules that they have to add in, but they're still figuring out the best way to balance schedules to make the game more fun. They don't want to implement mixed mode and pure strategy for Mass too soon and have to go back and redo some of that work later, since it would be a waste of time. So mixed mode and pure strategy are not the highest priority right now, since there is a lot of other stuff they want to get in first that would affect the work that needs to be done for mixed mode and pure strategy in Massacre. When asked what exactly a community manager does, Brittany clarified that she's a liaison between the studio and the players. She's active on social media, Discord, and Twitch, seeing what everyone is saying and how everyone feels. She's actively communicating with the dev team and others in the studio to make sure everyone is on the same page and that players are being heard. Lalta adds that it's hard to build the game and talk about it at the same time. Brittany will help communicate the development process with players. She'll help with roadmaps, answering questions, being transparent with development, digesting feedback, making it easier for players to get into testing, and other things. Finally, they state that there is no set release date for the next patch. They'll be getting hot fixes in to polish stuff, but the biggest focus right now is getting Xbox out. They'll be sharing what's coming soon, but won't be sharing specific dates, so it sounds like we'll be seeing hot fixes here and there before the next big update. That ought to do it for this dev stream roundup. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, for the record, I've only included information pertaining specifically to the development of the game and future updates. If you'd like me to include other information about what happened during the dev stream, what they actually did, who won the giveaways, stuff like that, I'd be happy to do so. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd care to see. But that ought to do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching.